5G is the ultimate directed energy weapon system, says particle physicist. And there's brief facts at the top before we go into the main story. And it says, the facts. Particle physicist Dr. Catherine Horton argues, based on her research and personal experiences, that the 5G network is intended as a directed energy weapon system that aligns with the goals of the global elite to enslave humanity. Absolutely right. Exactly what I've been saying since it was first announced that this 5G was going to be introduced. And it asked the question in this article, will the rollout of 5G prove to be the ultimate catalyst for humanity to awaken and change our collective trajectory? Well, you know, it's so important to keep getting this information about 5G out into the public arena, much as the mainstream media doesn't want it there. Because although you can't stop it being rolled out as we are, because it is being rolled out, the more that you can get into circulation the consequences of 5G, the more when those consequences manifest, people are going to relate that to 5G. Whereas if you didn't get it out beforehand, they wouldn't relate it to 5G. They'd say, oh, it's a mystery. It's like smartphones used by kids with very thin skulls who are experiencing dramatically increased brain cancers around the ear they use for the phone. And people are saying, oh, it's a mystery. That's what the official science is saying. It's a mystery. We need to do more research. Well, no, you don't. You just need to observe where people put these phones to their ear, where the cancer appears around the same place, and then reflect that to the number of cancers of that kind happening in children and adults before smartphones were introduced. It's actually quite straightforward. You don't need to be a scientist. You just need to have a modicum of intelligence. But of course, intelligence leads you to the truth. And the last thing the system and the telecommunications industry expression of the system wants is for people to be given the cause and effect truth about why this is happening. And so it's very, very important, like I say, to get information out about the consequences of 5G so that when they start to happen, then people will see a cause and effect that they wouldn't otherwise see. So here's the story in its main form. Dr. Catherine Horton sees the current rollout of the 5G network in a way that is different from mainstream perception. Not difficult. And for good reason. To begin with, she is a particle physicist with a PhD from prestigious Oxford University. She worked as a high-energy physicist on the particle collider at the German Elektronsynchrotron, DESY, in Hamburg, Germany, and on the famous or infamous Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. At Oxford, Dr. Horton worked as a research fellow at St. John's College, a position that allowed her to expand her research from particle physics into medical physics and the physics of complex human systems. As part of the latter, she conducted systems analysis research of the English legal system, economies, the financial system, currencies, as well as white-collar crime and organized crime. In other words, she has the credentials to be public enemy number one to a global elite that is trying to deceptively use technology as a key cog in their plan to enslave humanity under a totalitarian world government. During her childhood in Romania, Dr. Horton alleges that she and her family experienced intimidation and terrorism because they were highly educated and refused to take part in the snitching and informant criminality being promoted by mob networks there. Dr. Horton says that stalking and other such activities ramped up in November 2011 as she was attending a High Court case in London as part of her systems analysis research into the English legal system. She says she was openly stalked on her way home from court and started noticing a thug waiting for her outside her home every morning to follow her to the train station. Now, I've come across many stories like this over the years of people being targeted, not least through technology. Attempts to face these forces head on through the courts and through activism have led to a rise in these attacks upon her, which include not only human intimidation but torture through directed energy weapons. You can read more details about her experience at her Stop 007 website, which among other things offers support and legal guidance for targeted individuals. In the extensive network or the extensive interview rather that's been posted on the internet, Dr. Horton attempts to bring her to bear her vast knowledge of the capabilities of energy weapons and awaken us to the fact that these are the true modern weapons of warfare today, not ballistic weapons that we still see portrayed in movies and talked about in geopolitical conflicts. Absolutely right. This is the cutting edge. Directed energy weapons, which you can't even see. What I would like to do, she says, is to take all the people who are maybe even more overwhelmed than I am. I want to pick them up where they're at, maybe, and then bring them up to speed and tell them everything I know. So by the end of the show, they at least know what I think and what I know so that they can make up their own mind about what they think. And there are several discoveries I had trying to research the subject, and I should say that my main focus is not even 5G or 5G campaigning. My main focus is campaigning to have all directed energy weapons shut down, which includes also satellite weaponry, weaponry hidden in cars, weapons carried by gang stalkers in rucksacks, and all of this sort of stuff. And out of all of that, 5G is, if you like, the state system. It encapsulates everything. It can do a bit of everything, and it will be everywhere. Like I've said so many times over these years, to make this smart grid function so AI controls everything, including the human mind, they needed at least 5G level of communication power and frequency. And that's why it's coming in, and that's why it's coming in without any independent checks done by the system itself, because they know what they will find if they do and go through that process. So she says, your 5G system is like a gang stalker with a directed energy weapon in his rucksack who shoots you in the face as you're walking behind him. On the pavement, for example. But it will not be a gang stalker. They can do away with those. If they just have these 5G antennas every 50 or 100 meters. So the 5G system will do everything that current global weapons systems can do. And it can also, I strongly believe, it can also instantly kill, okay? So in other words, if you want to cut to the chase, my view of the 5G system, and I'll show you why I think that's the case, she says, the 5G system should be best imagined as the government or this shadowy group that has infested the government, taking over every city on the planet and every village and every smallest town, and even, the forest where you think there is nothing, and putting up hidden machine guns that follow you and your family, pointing right at you, and these are, set sharp so they can shoot you dead at the speed of light if somebody so wishes, okay? So that is the best description of the 5G system that I have, which is precisely what I've been warning about all these years. This is what 5G is designed to be. And of course, the mainstream media, if they were real journalists, would be all over it, but they're not, because they're not real journalists. They're incredibly uninformed. And the article just continues. You can read it on davidicke.com. If you put in the headline, 5G is the ultimate directed energy weapon system, says particle physicist, you'll see it. She says, the article says, the above description and much of her explanation may strain credulity for many readers, it certainly challenges the mainstream worldview that our elected leaders are the flawed but ultimately legitimate authorities of our world, that wars and killing are conducted for justifiable reasons, that intelligence agencies protect us and will not try to harm us, or that we are not in some way victims of complex social engineering designed to turn us all into obedient slaves. We have been, the article says, poking holes in mainstream perception since our beginning a decade ago, the website says. And today, the long-standing hidden plans for mass surveillance, enslavement and depopulation are coming ever more clearly into view. Yes, they are, because it's all been orchestrated. And this is what it really is, this 5G. Anyway, this is the article talking about this conflict of interest happening all over the world. But it says some governments have been taking a more active role in protecting citizens and the environment. Not the US, though, and it's only getting worse with the insane race for 5G. Current rules, the article says, safety limits and guidelines for microwave RF radiation exposure were adopted in 1996 and don't apply to how most people use or are exposed to devices and infrastructure today. They also don't apply to how current technology and products are manufactured and marketed. There is still no safe level of exposure that has been scientifically determined for children or pregnant women, even though devices are marketed to everyone, including kids, to use in ways that aren't safe. I've said before that one of the things they do in this fake research to create safety limits that aren't safety limits at all, they're just the level of frequency and power that the telecommunications industry needs to put their products into circulation. So government agencies say, what level do you need to operate on so that you can run your technology and sell your technology? And the telecommunications industry will say this level. And what they then do is make the official safe level just above that level. It's nothing to do whatsoever with safety. So this article says health experts continue to warn that kids are more vulnerable to exposure. I was going to say before I move on, one of the things that they do in this so-called fake research, well, not so-called fake research, it is fake research, is they have something it calls Sam Phantom Head. And Sam Phantom Head is a fake head that's based on the skull of an American soldier. So it's a very thick skull. These big all-American macho men. And they test the effect on this Sam Phantom Head. And then they put out the safety level based on Sam Phantom Head. It's not even a safety level for macho men, but they say it is. And of course they put the phones out, and they're used by everyone, including children with very, very much thinner skulls. And thus, what is a safe limit, even in their terms, for a butch soldier, is actually way over the limit for children with thin skulls. And most of these smartphone telecommunications companies go right to the Sam Phantom Head limit. So my goodness me, what's hitting the brains of children from these devices? So in fact, no biological entities seem to be immune. Still, the promotion of 5G and other microwave radiation emitting devices and the forced installation of emitting infrastructure, towers and so on, only increases like it's magically innocuous and beneficial to us all. The story goes on. You can read it if you go into davidicke.com. An invisible threat investigates conflict of interest among telecom politicians and scientists. It goes in, and there's a video there as well, which looks at the conflicts of interest of the people that are saying 5G is fine.